Gonna wish everybody a safe and happy new year, prosperous one as well. If you had a tough time with this 2020, I hope your 2021 is a lot better. As you can see, I'm still working on this 850. I will be back here on New Year's Day. Didn't get done. Got to keep trucking. I don't even know how much time I got left on it. Today we got most of the engine stuff connected. We got the transmission service. We have all of the coolant stuff connected. We got all of the turbo vacuum stuff and lines brand new, replaced and connected. We got that driver's side wheel hub that fell apart on and connected. We delivered Alex his engine hoist back, and we got a couple other things done. So that's where we're at, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Again, Happy New Year. Welcome to Hanging Out with Robert, that's me. This video contains things that I tinker with throughout the day. For step-by-step detailed instructions of those tasks, you can click on the links in the comment section below. I plan on leaving this video accessible for about 30 days. After that, you can view it through my Patreon account. This video also has tips and tricks that I've learned over the years. So, thank you very much for watching. Look at here, so-called Panther is crying out of that head. 850 cluster plastic display cover. It's fogged up somehow. It looks horrible. I had this one I got from Christopher Baptiste that I threw in the car because I was going to use gauges out of it. Well, this plastic facing looks better than John's, but I did nick it up, so I come over to Swedish Car Parts. We're wet sanding it. Started off with 500. Now we're going to hit it with 1,000. Wet sanded. It should polish up very nice. We had several blemishes in this thing from me tossing around in the car for 6 months, and now hopefully this wet sanding process with 1,000 will clear this up after we've roughed up the surface, wet sanding it with the 500, and got the nicks and chips and stuff I put in there, most of those out. We did the 500 lengthways. Now we're doing the 1,000 vertically, and that way you know you get it full coverage, because the grain and the scratches will be going the other way. So of course this is wet, and it's trying to polish up this lens so that it's nice and smooth and uniform without a bunch of blemishes in it when we get done. Then we're going to hit it with 2,000, and that should make it pop and get rid of any scratch glare. 2,000 is just so fine. It should get it where we want it. And this is a 94 instrument cluster. It has a trip computer in there. If somebody wants it, let me know. And all that white ash you seen was, of course, the plastic coming off in the sanding process. Now we're hitting it with 2,000 lengthwise again, horizontally. Very little of that plastic is coming off now. You see very little white residue coming off of the sandpaper process. And that glass should be smooth and shiny here. And then we're going to buff it. Wax will fill all the micro scratches in, so you can wax it after that, and it should be perfectly clear and smooth. Last but not least, we have some ultra-fine McGuire's polishing compound over here, and we got a polishing pad, and we are polishing that thing up. Man, it's looking better already.
You gotta take your time with it, I think.
Wax on, wax off.
The finishing pad. So we switched the one that we were applying the compound with to the finishing pad. And I have a little light here, so at the right angle you could see, when you're buffing it, you could see the imperfections or whatever you have to buff out. So light right over the lens, which is the finishing pad. You gotta get results.
Alright, let's see. Seeing a few imperfections, so we're going back with a little bit more polishing, and then we're going to go with some more buffing. And there it is, folks. We cleaned it with some detergent and a paintbrush, a little bit of dish detergent. Now we're going to get a microfiber cloth and dry it off.
No hot water, because hot water affects it sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want the water too hot on there. Of course, my camera always gives a glare since I cracked the lens. Man, this thing was roughed up from right around in the back of Panther, but sheesh, look at it now.
No, looks good.
That lens is clean. You can't complain about that.
No.
That is like close to new. He's going to be thrilled.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you his when I get back to his car. You can see a little bit of the surface things under this microscopic light, but in the car you won't notice none of that. It looks even better on the cluster there. That thing is shining. Very nice. Here we are, folks, back at it. Brr! The heater's just kicking on. John's got this heater in here. Man, it makes it nice in just a few minutes. I'm gonna start off by putting this instrument cluster together, and then getting his dash pad on, then getting these clutch pedals in, then getting these gauges run in here. So let me get cracking and keep this train rolling. Choo choo. Here's the comparison. That's the 97 cluster that's in his car. See that fogging in the plastic? Like 60% of the plastic has fogging. And this is the cluster we just cleaned up the display on, the protective plastic on. I have no idea why the 94 cluster yellows so much compared to that 97 cluster. Maybe it's different plastic, but this is what we're going to swap over to that. Now, if you need a cluster, I believe this cluster works. However, that plastic display thing will need to be cleaned up, or you need to use your own. This is a 94-95 cluster. It has the trip computer on it. I got the turbo gauge in Panther. I can put that back on there. But this is a turbo cluster that you could put on a 94-95 model. Because of the ABS system change, it will not work in cars newer than 95. There it is. Let me know. Oh, I have a problem. I have to do this last but not least because we suspect there's some bulbs out. I could get my own meter and test them, or I could fire this thing up once I get everything else in and test them that way. So I think I'm going to change the main 4 bulbs on the back and then test these other bulbs and change the ones that I find that are out. Ouch! One thing I didn't account for is those indicators may be different. So I'm going to look, see if any of these indicators are different. If so, I might have to figure out a way to swap that over. It looks like it's easy enough. Let's see what we got. The difference is this 97 cluster says tracks off, and the 94 cluster just says tracks. So I'm going to try to pop that off real quick, get my little penknife, see if I can swap that over. That did pop right out, so I popped the other one in there, and I'm looking for my screwdriver so I can screw that in and get the light bulbs tested and changed. Got that thing back together, looking good. The only bulbs I see that are missing in this thing is low oil level, a blank that something can be put there, and this symbol that looks like a catalytic converter or something's overheating, hot exhaust or something. Anyway, that thing's together. Let's find these light bulbs. I don't think I've talked much about instrument clusters, but anyway, occasionally these gauges will go bad. The temp gauge, the turbo boost gauge, the fuel gauge, something like that will go bad in them, and you can easily take those out. Once you get the cluster apart and the face off, you can take those gauges out and swap them over to another cluster. They're got some kind of contacts in them where it allows you to transfer them over. So that's one thing you can be aware of. Of course, light bulbs burn out in them. That's very common. And then some of them have trip computers, some of them don't. And then the odometer gear goes out in them. So, of course, I already mentioned that some of them are for 95 and older, and some of them are for 96 and newer. You can actually put a 98 S70 cluster in a 96 or 97 850. Why would somebody want to do that? I don't know. They don't have a turbo boost gauge. But anyway, that can be done. It's digital. You don't have to worry about odometer gears breaking. And that's another issue with these odometer gears breaking. So I think that's all I got. Found those light bulbs I got from FCP, I believe. So I'm going to swap those into the cluster and test the other bulbs. Bulbs on the back of the cluster. The main 4 bulbs are half turn, pull them out, and then the light bulb is just plugged into it. Just push in. I'm trying to pull it out. With one hand, it's tricky. Let me try that again. 2 hands, that's easy. 1 hand is tricky. There you go. Bulb pulls out, new bulbs push in. You see all of those bulbs are old and brown. So you just take the new bulb and you just push it into that little socket there. Then these other ones are bulb assemblies. You have to replace the whole ones. I think in 96 they went to blue, and 95 and older they're black. But I'm going to test them all with my own meter and replace the ones that are bad. I have the new bulbs pressed in there. These are incandescent bulbs. You don't want to have oily fingers all over them, but it really doesn't matter. The nice thing about these old bulbs is they're not polarity sensitive. Trying to get that thing turned back in. Now, some people like to update their instrument cluster lights to LEDs. They want their cluster nice and bright. I don't like my cluster bright. I actually dim my cluster when I'm driving because a bright cluster reduces my visibility on the road. And I'd rather see the road than my instrument cluster. I'm not trying to do a Christmas light show with my instrument cluster. I'm trying to see the road so I don't crash into nothing or run into any potholes in Chicago. So, that's how you put those bulbs in. Let me get the tester and test the rest of them. Well, obstacle distraction number 400. I just figured out the battery was dying in this thing. I switched it around here, and it gave me a low battery. Then the battery meter died, so had to pry it out of the case. I'm going to go ahead and see what kind of batteries it takes and get those swapped out so I can test these lights. Bingo! 9-volt battery. God knows I do not have one of them handy. I'll see if John does. Other than that, we're moving on to the next item on the punch list. Last night I pulled the shifter cable bushings out. One looked good. The other one's destroyed. So I'm going to go ahead and feed the shifter cables around the way they need to go. And then work on the wiring for my AFR gauge and other gauges that I need to run through the loom there. There's the loom that goes to the inside. I'm about to replace this throttle body cable that goes from the gas pedal out to the throttle body. This one is for an automatic car. It has the kick down switch in it. The one for the manual cars do not have that switch on them, and they route a little different. I'm not 100% sure what the benefit is, but I'll post it in the comments when I figure it out. Pushed in and snapped that in place, the throttle cable for the manual cars. Went inside, installed the two-pedal assembly, clutch and brake. That is installed, attached, all the hardware there. Now I pulled this plug off. Great, feed some wires through the firewall for my boost gauge and the vacuum line for the boost gauge, and some wires for the AFR, stuff like that. So we are cooking here. Got that secure. Got my pedal installed again. Great, run some wires up to this pillar post for the gauge post we're installing. And crazy enough, that is the plug for the sun visor. They put it down too far in the 850s. In the S&V 70s, that plug is right here. So if you unplug that sun visor, you have a plug there to plug it back in. Look like somebody's disconnected and rewired it here at one point. Anyway, we're going to run some wires, hook up this gooseneck for the steering wheel, and keep it moving. One of the hassles of taking that gooseneck out of the steering assembly is getting your steering wheel back straight. So right there, I had the steering wheel straight when I removed it. I put a black magic mark right on the bottom. So let's say I was one notch off of that mark. That would turn my steering wheel that much. So I should be good to go from there to there. That's like 1 o'clock position. So my guess is there's probably 12 grooves in this dang steering wheel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 16 grooves, I guess. Wait, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, probably 16 grooves in that thing. Anyway, that should be set. I'm gonna secure that. Then I'm gonna plug these two switches in the brake pedal, and then I'm gonna keep going. That's the AEM gauge kit we got, 30-4110. This is the AEM gauge connection that we have. It has a white, orange, red, green, black, brown wires. It will not fit through the pass-through. So we're going to see if we can release these wires, pass them through the pass-through, firewall pass-through, and then reconnect them. Not sure if that's going to happen or not. I know they got special things to release these, but maybe just pushing those in right there will do it. They're locked in there. I have the power steering pump bracket secure. This bolt here and the bolt that comes through the alternator on the bottom. So I'm ready to lift the engine by this and that engine mount bracket back there. Set this engine in place. It is officially heavy with all the accessories on it. So I went to the store, got some chain, you may remember a couple days ago. I'm gonna go ahead and hook this up, balance it the way I want it, and put it in position and slowly lower this thing in here and attach it. I have the rear O2 sensor wires connected to my harness going in there to my wideband, and I have some few other wires pulled through. That's my wideband sensor connection. Got the engine mount in place. I believe that's properly positioned. This one's properly positioned. You want the mount to be positioned so that the lip on the mount is like this, so your cable is going right to left. So that should be good. I gotta make sure I don't damage anything when I lower this down in here. When you're dropping an engine and trans in together, it's best if you have it tilted transmission down. Tuck it under here. Be careful you don't bump that and break that little bump stop mount there. And you don't crush anything else as you go down. Hold this stuff up and out of the way. Again, we didn't have the AC disconnected, so that's prepared to go back in. And just take your time. Don't destroy anything. You can do it by yourself. With some help is better. The serpentine belt idler is missing off of the engine. We took the one off the donor, the whole bracket, so I'm going to pop that cap off, unbolt that, put that on there before I put the engine in, because I have more access. Easier to bolt it on with the engine out. And this thing is loose as a goose. Wouldn't be a bad idea to replace these. That should be a 12. The engine and trans is in place. Look at them beautiful things right there. Hook those cables up soon. We got the starter hooked up. Got the ground wire down there. Getting ready to put that lower intake manifold bracket on. Got the alternator hooked up. Got the temp sensor hooked up. Tighten this clamp right there. Looked like it was sweating power steering fluid. So in the morning, we're going to finish wiring this thing up, hooking up the linkage, and we got both of the mounts in place. We just took our time, man, lowered that thing in nice and slow and steady, and everything went very well. So we got wired up AEM, and of course the wires going in there. Probably won't fill that hole with silicone after we get everything where we want it to be. And we're just going to plug along. Coming along nicely. If you feel that this information was useful, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can subscribe to my channel so that you will get notifications of future videos that I post. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you need to contact me directly, please visit my website. And if you have any questions, leave them below, and someone or myself will reply to them. Again, thank you very much for watching.